36 years of basketball knowledge and life skills. Your host, Coach Goins, focuses on today's topics on and off the court, helping players and coaches achieve their goals. So get ready for another fast break episode of Basketball More Than a Game with your host, Coach Goins.
Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, yes, it is Coach Goins. And you know what? Say, Coach, what's popping? You know what? I am not in the studio. I am on the scene live in Harrisonburg, Virginia. You say, Coach, what are you doing in Harrisonburg, Virginia? I'm going to tell you in a minute. But like we always say, make sure you have your sneakers on. You got them laced up tight, because today we are going to be hearing from a dynamic young lady. Yes, exactly right. Are we talking basketball today? Not today. We're talking about life skills. So, like I said, make sure you got your sneakers laced up tight. So, before we get in the show, you know how we always got to roll. We got to pay the bills to stay on the air. So, we want to, first of all, and always thank our title sponsor, Mr. Curtis Jackson, the independent broker agent and insurance salesman out of the great state of North Carolina, now serving the Southern Commonwealth of Virginia. So please reach out to Curtis for your insurance needs at 919-614-5796. Mr. Curtis Jackson, we appreciate you and your staff for your continued support of basketball more than the game. So, Coach, you know what? Sunday conversation, it's almost, well, it's actually not Christmas, but we're recording this in Harrisonburg, Virginia. So when you listen to this, it will be Christmas Eve. But we are so excited to have with us today none other than Miss Letitia Bates. Right here, and I'm actually in her office in the great city of Harrisonburg, Virginia. So, Miss Bates, welcome to Basketball More in the Game.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. So, listen, you say, Coach, man, who is Miss Bates? Listen, you know what? I'm sitting right here. You can't see it, but I can. I'm sitting here staring at her book. That is right now #1 seller on Amazon. So that is exactly right. So we are making history today. What a great opportunity to discuss the book. But she's a life coach, inspirational speaker, and also a radio host. And I'm not going to let all the cat out of the bag, but she is the CEO of At the Wheel Coaching. Again, right here in her beautiful office. And if you could see this view, you'd be jealous. So I'm not going to share that with you. We'll talk about that more in a second. So for all of our listening audience, Ms. Bates, go ahead, and I'm just going to turn it over to you. Just tell us about who you are and just what you do.
Okay. Well, my name is Letitia Bates, as you mentioned. I'm originally from the Tidewater, Virginia area and moved to Harrisonburg a little over a decade ago and started my career in insurance.
Okay.
Insurance professional for almost 20 years. And what I loved about insurance, I was an auto claims professional.
Okay.
And what I loved about insurance was this idea of indemnity, making people whole.
Okay.
And what that looked like as an auto claims professional was helping people get back at the wheel of their vehicles.
Okay.
And so as life would progress and things would come up, I started to think, how can I more directly impact people? And so making people whole looked a little different. But in my mind, it was still the same. And so now it's more about helping people get back at the wheel of their lives.
Oh, how about that?
And that way, no matter what comes up, it's about helping people get back to that sense of wholeness.
You know what? That's awesome.
So I started my life coaching practice a few years ago, and it's been growing. And then I was inspired to write the book because I knew I could have a wider impact than just the people that I was meeting one-on-one. And hence the book, I Can, which I started writing earlier this year. So it's I Can, 12 Keys to Achieve Personal Success in the Smartest Way.
Wow.
So personal success is different than what people may consider overall success.
Okay.
So this is not about how to make $13 million a year, how to get your house. No, this is about personal fulfillment.
Okay.
Because there are many, many people who have maternal success, but internally they still have a sense of brokenness. They still have a sense of sadness. They still are dealing with trauma or unresolved emotional distress from past experiences. So how do you get to a level of success where you feel personally fulfilled while you enjoy your material things?
Wow.
And the book is broken down into 3 parts. The first part is who you have to be. Like, where do you find your identification?
Okay.
The next is what you have to do. You know, how you set the goal and make the goal. And then the last part is how do you actually have it? Like, what do you do to actually manifest what it is that you're looking for?
You know what, folks? This is so timely because, this week's podcast, we're just talking about, motivation, and from motivation, passion. And when those two things collide, it aligns you up for success. So what Miss Bates is dropping for you listeners, and again, coaches, we're challenging you. We are challenging you. You need to go out and get a hold of a copy of the book, the 12 keys to achieve your personal success. And that's what basketball, more than the game, is all about. It's just not about what you do on the court. It's making sure that we're taking care of the whole person. So we just want to thank Miss Bates, for her time and her talent, and as we continue to dig into not just, because here's the thing: we're not going to sit here and tell you all about the book. She's just going to stay at about 20,000 feet, and maybe she'll drop a little bit of altitude on that. But you can just tell, and I hope you can already, from her voice, the passion that she possesses, and again, to make the person whole, and that is our sole desire here at Basketball More in the Game. But before we turn that back over, we just want to make sure that you are checking us out and continue to subscribe and like and follow us on Facebook, as well as YouTube and Podbean. And we want to thank all of our listeners from all across our 15 international countries. And we just want to thank you. It's so exciting to every time I go in and check and see where somebody else has downloaded or somebody else has followed us. And our latest and greatest country that we've been able to slide into is Ghana, Africa. I have a great friend of mine, Mr. Albert Josiah, is from Ghana, Africa, and just want to thank him for his continued support. But let's go ahead and get back to Miss Bates, because she is the star of the hour. So I want to kind of do a little digging here as it relates to the fast break session of the podcast, At the Wheel Coaching. Can you, because again, I'm a coach, I'm a basketball coach, and you're a certified life coach, which is so important. But how did you come up with At the Wheel Coaching, if you'll share that?
Yep, and that's what it's from. It's from my background as being an insurance claims professional, where I handle claims and put people at the will of the people.
How about that?
And that was putting them at the will of their lives. And I think that, there are a lot of the people that I'm dealing with are successful in some right, professionals, but some people are really stuck in some of the most painful parts of their lives, and they're trying to progress at the personal level and evolve, but they're still dealing with that emotional distress from things that have happened. So one of the things I talk about in the book is this issue of abandonment that I dealt with for years and years and years.
Okay.
And that came from a father that wasn't present. Okay. And so what I didn't understand as my life was progressing, and I just kind of felt this sense of really worthlessness and just kind of this absence inside of me, I didn't understand that it was coming from his absence in my life. Wow. I did not make that connection. I just knew that there was kind of like this perpetual sadness that lived inside of me. So on the outside, I was doing good, and I was, progressing, and I was getting promoted at work and all this stuff. But it was almost like living two lives, because at home I would come and I would have like this real kind of sadness that was following me. So the long story short is I was about to hit a milestone in my life. I was about to hit 40. Okay. And what I was realizing is time wasn't healing all of my wounds. Okay. Because a lot of time had passed. All right. And I decided I needed to really go in and do some work and really start to deal with what was happening with me emotionally. So I went into therapy, and as the therapy sessions were evolving and I was getting my footing emotionally, I started to think, okay, well, what does my life look like now without my problem? Wow. What happens now that I don't feel abandoned anymore? Like, I understand that my father had limitations. Like, I finally, because I was no longer mired in the emotional distress, I could actually gain some perspective on the situation. Okay. Age didn't give that to me. Okay. Time didn't give that to me. Doing some emotional work did that to me. Separating myself from the inciting incident where my father told me that I was responsible for the demise of my parents' marriage. Okay. That was a conversation he had with me when I was 7. Wow. So, and really not being cruel, he just really didn't recognize the impact of his words. He just didn't understand that. And he passed away in 2014, and he never really came around to understanding. So that made me understand that it's not about somebody giving you the apology you think you need. Okay. If you need somebody else to apologize for their behavior, you got a problem. Right. Okay? Because they may not come to the realization, they may not be ready to own that. So then what do you do? And how do you still stay connected to your sense of power?
Wow.
And that's a part of what I write about in the book. And that abandonment theme and how it was showing up in my life and it was showing up in relationships, really doing the emotional work is what helped me, really get to some solid footing.
Wow.
So-
That's powerful.
Well, because there's a disconnect, right? So people were seeing me and experiencing me in the world, and I was a corporate leader, and so, people, and I was good at what I did and all that kind of stuff. And so people didn't really know.
Right.
Right? And so a part of what I want to write in the book and who I want to speak to in the book is men. Because I want men to really understand the power that they hold as a father.
Right.
Like, I don't think they get it. And I think at the end, my father actually thought my life was better off without him.
When in fact it wasn't.
It wasn't. And he couldn't handle what had happened to me. He couldn't even hear some of the stuff that I had gone through because of his absence.
Wow.
And what had happened to him was that he had been abandoned by his father. So what he did was carried out a model of behavior that he had seen for himself,
Right.
not really understanding the impact.
Wow. So coaches, I'm going to challenge you. This is it's going to be an excellent read for you. And you say, Coach, why would this be an excellent read for me? Because unfortunately, a lot of times, we find players in the game of basketball that come from single parents and absent fathers. Some of the fathers may only show up on game night, even if they do that. So how do you, as a coach, relate to a player that comes out of a single family home? And sometimes you may be in the coaching office and you don't understand why Johnny's acting this way and why Bobby's acting this way and why Jimmy's acting this way, because you don't know that home situation. They're they're from a single parent, but you're missing that key component, which is a father, which Miss Bates is calling out. And then that allows, or the disadvantage of that player may be emotional.
Yep.
And only time they really see a father figure is the coach.
Yes.
And so instead of being able to embrace that coach, sometimes he may lash out. Sometimes we're so quick to say, "Oh, the kid has an attitude problem." Instead of finding, it's almost what I try to do is it's almost a relationship before the task, if you will. If a player comes in the gym and he doesn't have that father, you need to build that relationship before that player can give you the best that they have to offer. So as Ms. Bates continues to lay this down, I really want to tap into, when you were in the insurance business, and you just said, and again, as you put it at the wheel coaching. I mean, now when you saw that, it's just really jumped off the page, and you made that pivotal moment. Let's talk about what went through your mind when you say, all right, I'm doing this, I'm successful in the insurance business, but I've been called to do this.
Yes.
Can we talk about that bridge? Can we talk about, okay, what do I need to do? I'm a female, I'm a minority. How do I come outside of my comfort zone to where here's success? I'm walking away from a successful position.
Yep.
And to start something new. And I'm not from here, and if I was home, I could do it, but I'm not from home. It's really starting to peel back the onion, if you will, take away from the excuses, because there might be a lot of people out there that's listening and subscribing to us that may have something that's inside of them, but don't have that initiative, or maybe a little, I don't want to use the word fearful, but they're having a little apprehension of stepping out. So if you can kind of, take us across that bridge, if you will.
Sure. So when I graduated from high school, I graduated with a 1.9 grade point average, which means I barely got out.
So you graduated like I did. Thank God Almighty.
Yes, I like to say I graduated at the top of the bottom.
I can relate.
Okay. So I just didn't, because of the stuff I had gone through, I just didn't have the confidence. Mm-hmm. Going to college was not the next logical step for me. I started doing a couple of odd jobs, and then I ended up working in insurance. I got this great opportunity, and I just started growing there. And I just loved, somebody would be in a car accident, and I was at their service, and I could help them go through that process and really get them back at the wheel. Mm-hmm. And it was just this exciting thing that I could be there. This is this low point in somebody's life, and I really liked that. And so that's what I was doing in my insurance career, and I loved it. But like I said, there was this nagging thing inside that I'm growing professionally and I'm doing well professionally, I'm not doing well emotionally.
Right.
And I could not escape that. And so when I got to the point where I said, I'm about to be 40 and I don't want to take these feelings into the next chapter of my life.
Okay.
I got to get serious about getting complete with this. And that's when I started the therapy. And so as the therapy was helping me to deal and heal, I started to ask, well, what does my life look like without these issues? So I hired a life coach. And so the life coach started helping me construct a different vision for my life. And I thought, but it wasn't based on where I had been.
Okay.
Because I didn't have to base my future on what my past had been.
Okay, that's wow, that's powerful.
Okay? I was laying new ground.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like, well, you can have whatever you want. And I thought, well, geez, I really like this idea of helping people be whole. What if I could do that more directly? Not just help them get back at the wheel of their vehicles. What if I could actually go in, hold space for them, help them deal with their emotional issues, and then help them craft a vision for their life? What would that be like? That would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, all right, where do I start with that? I like this idea of coaching. I like talking to people. I like being with people. And I started exploring that. And then I got a life coaching certification. And then I'm also trained in a modality and certified in a modality. It's called tapping. And it's a technique that helps people, that activates the body's relaxation response as opposed to the stress response that comes up when people are feeling depressed or sad or dealing with emotional trauma.
Okay, and you call that what now?
It's called tapping.
Tapping, okay.
Okay. And so what you're really doing is you're tapping on acupressure points.
Okay.
And that's what activates the body's relaxation response. So the tools together helps me have a person come in, talk about what's going on with them. If they're still in distress about it, it doesn't matter what it is. I see a lot of things show up in my office. It could be abuse from the past. It could be people who have been divorced, people who are just kind of stuck and don't know where to go from that. And we use different tools to help them navigate that emotional distress. And from that place, right, that's when they start crafting the vision for going forward. So I started doing that, and so I have clients in different states and in different countries. So I was doing it at home on Skype on the weekend in the evenings.
Okay.
And I was still working full time. And I thought, well, this will be cool. I can just do both. But more and more and more, my passion, my heart was going toward the coaching. And then I thought, they're similar in my mind, but they require different things of me, and there's a different demand here. And in order to really make this what I want it to be, I have to be willing to give my whole self to it. So, in February of this year, I resigned at the end of February. And it was a really great split with my employer because I'd been with them for almost 11 years. In fact, I've done some consulting work with them since then. But it was just time.
Right.
And so there were many excuses to stay, but I
couldn't do it.
But I couldn't do it. And I started in this office in January.
Okay.
And that's where it really became apparent to me that I couldn't be here and there simultaneously. Like I needed to give my heart and soul to this.
It was this.
It was this.
You know, and here's the thing, and I certainly appreciate Ms. Bates really, allowing us to go behind the veil, if you would, and a lot of times, and again, our challenges, you have to do what's again passion. You can be motivated to do something, and we all know that after a while that motivation kind of runs out. Then you have to really tap into the passion, and when you have that passion. And you really, work that passion. That's when excellence comes out. That's when you're fulfilling the desires that what's inside of you, doing what you do. Coaches, you coach because what is within you. We can't. Some of your high school coaches, of course, you can't recruit. You have to play with the players that show up in your gym. So therefore you have to be passionate about what you do because it's not every year in and year out, you're going to have that stellar player, you're going to have that stellar program. So you have to sometimes take the good with the bad. But as Ms. Bates says, think about, don't focus on the past, you build your future. So our challenge is as you build a program, you don't build it from what you did last year. You build it, for next year. So the players that you have, coming back, that's what you set up for. You may talk about or you may reflect on some of the great players, but always remember that as a coach, make sure that you're lifting up your players that you currently have. and don't always have them looking back at what somebody else has done, because it's not about what somebody else has done. It's their time to shine. So we certainly appreciate her, going into that segment of what makes at the wheel coaching, what makes it successful, what makes it on the road. It says driving your life to higher ground. Now, we want to talk about this book. And I said, we're talking about this book. It's #1 on Amazon. So tell me, when I say that, folks, you can't see her, but I can. I see it in her eyes. I see her. She's lit up. It's very, very exciting time when a person sits down. And I'm not an author, so I'm only just taking this from what I know. Is she had a vision. She took the vision, wrote it down, made it plain. She invested, sent it out. And then now look at it, come back. Now it's #1 on Amazon. So describe that. I want you to talk to the audience about the feeling when you heard this, the news, the passion. If you don't mind sharing that.
Yeah, I was overcome with glee. Is really the right word for it. And so where does the title come from? 2 places. So my favorite story, one of my most defining moments, was the Yes We Can speech that Barack Obama gave back in 2008. So there I am in my living room. And the thing about that speech that was so amazing is that he gave that speech when he lost the New Hampshire primary. Okay. So he was slated to win. He was 11 points up in the poll. Everybody thought he was going to win, and then he lost. But out of that came that speech, the Yes We Can speech. And I remember jumping up and down in my living room. I was just beside myself. And I was toying with this idea of going to college at the time, because I hadn't started. Remember, my grade point average hadn't lent itself.
Right.
All right. So I thought, if this guy believes he can be the first African-American president of the United States of America, I think I can take some classes at the community college.
Hello, somebody.
I think I can do this.
Hello.
So I said, I'm going to work for the Dickens for the campaign. And I did. I went to different states and knocked on doors in the primary and did all this work. And then I signed up. And I decided, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to give it literally my A game. And so it was a 7-year journey while I was working full time. And at the end, I had started the business in addition to that. But I graduated last year, summa cum laude. And I was able to give a speech at the graduation. They asked me to speak.
How about that?
So I thought, now I really have a lot of proof and fuel for what's possible for me, again, that is not based on where I had been.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. All right. And so I started the coaching practice, and again, I thought, well, how can I be more global in sharing the message, and how can I give people a sense that they can? So, hence, I Can. That's why the title of the book is I Can. I Can is actually an acronym. So the I is identify. It's identify who you want to be. It's taking an inventory of who you've been and making sure your identity is not wrapped up in your past.
Wow. Say that again.
Taking inventory of who you've been and who you want to be, and making sure your identity is not wrapped up in your past.
Okay.
Wow. All right. So again, in the past, I was a victim. I don't consider myself a victim. I'm a victor.
Okay.
All right. And every time you identify yourself as a victim in any way, shape, form, or fashion, there's an element of powerlessness that's accompanied with that term. Okay. By re-identifying myself as a victor, I was open to stronger, more empowering emotions. So identify is the I in I Can. Okay? The C in I Can is for care. Learning how to take inventory of your feelings. Learning how to be conscious of how you feel, good, bad, or indifferent, but just recognizing them. The A in I Can is attend. Attending to those feelings. Doing the work of dealing with that emotional distress that's holding you back. And the N in I Can is for notice. There's an orientation change that has to take place, where you're no longer focused on what you're doing poorly or what you did bad, or what you are now noticing what you're doing well. You're giving your attention to your gifts, your talents, and your abilities. That's the B part of the book. That's the I Can.
Wow.
But that was the inspiration that came from Yes We Can, right? And it told me that I can. And so that's why when you pick the book up, and you look at it, you make an affirmation immediately because the title of the book is I Can. So you have to say it.
I can.
You have to say it in order to even look at the book.
Exactly.
Okay. So you're starting right immediately.
Exactly.
Right? And so when I sat down and put it all together and worked through all of the different processes, and I went through, I self-published.
Mm-hmm.
When it hit number one, it was just amazing because I understood that I was really, resonating and helping to get the message out that I think is really so important for people to hear.
You know what? So, folks, let Coach Goins is smiling a little bit because this is the first time I've had a number one author on the top-selling book on Amazon on the podcast. So we're getting the groundbreaking for Miss Bates as well as basketball more in the game, and that's what we're all about. It's not about Coach Goins. It's not about what we're about. Is making sure that the folks that dial in are tuned in to the latest and greatest folks that we can put around them. Great folks like Miss Bates and everybody that we've had on the show prior to. We really guard our folks, and as we come on, we as we call it Sunday conversation, because we're really not interviewing. We want people just to sit down and we just have conversation. And that she is the CEO of At the Wheel Coaching. You know what? That's one of the that's got to be just and that is just an awesome title. I mean, when you look at that and just say At the Wheel Coaching, and that's the thing. You coaches that are dialing in, and we certainly appreciate your weekly feedback, and we just hope you all just stop and take time and go on Amazon and pick this book up, because I can't wait to get my hands on it, because I'm gonna dial it in, because as Miss Bates is sitting here talking about I can. I mean, and that's the thing, you all deal with players, and the first thing is, oh, Coach, man, I can't do that. That's the first thing out of so many young players' mouth is, oh, Coach, I can't do that. And as a coach, you have to go in that laboratory every year and do that self-assessment, and how do I become better at coaching? How do I go in and continue to develop programs that makes your program the best that it can be? Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break and give Miss Bates a second to catch her breath. But what we're going to do real quick, we want to make sure that we thank our second sponsor, and that is Act Sports. And we certainly appreciate their continued support of basketball more in the game. So for your sports needs in Augusta County, you go to playactsports.com, and we want to thank Vincent and Candace, our directors of Act Sports. We're currently in basketball, and we actually broke a record. We've got 141 participants in our recreation department. It's hard to believe that at the end of when we finish, we'll have 24 basketball teams. From travel as well as rec, so we're staying busy with that, and again with travel volleyball, and of course basketball, travel basketball, a little bit of flag football. So there's so much going on with Act Sports, and we definitely want to thank them for their continued support of basketball more in the game. So as we get ready to get into the second part of the podcast, it's called In the Paint, and we talk about in the paint. We're going to find out who Miss Bates is, okay? Because we've talked about the book, but I'm sitting here in this office. You know what? And I'm going to be honest with you. Everybody's office kind of takes on their personality, what makes them pop. I'm looking at her color scheme. I'm looking at this view right out here. Feels like I'm on an episode of House of Cards with this nice, backdrop, and looks like I'm like in Washington D.C. looking down into downtown Harrisonburg. But people's office, as I say, takes on their personality. So what we're gonna do in the paint section, we're gonna find out, who this lady is that came out of the Tidewater area. Because me, I had to ask her that Coach Mike Tomlin. Me being a Steeler fan, so let me drop my football plug in there for my favorite, for them almighty Steelers. But in that, let's talk about your office here. And as I could feel it when I came in, I could feel the positive. I could feel the confidence that you exude just by walking. Because it's the first time I've ever been in an office, but when I walked in, I was like, you know what, this is tight. And I knew she had her game. She had her A game in place, and I knew that she'd be able to be beneficial to our subscribers and our followers. So, just if you don't mind, how did you select this office to be the office and the headquarters of At the Wheel Coaching?
Okay. Well, I came to this office. This is divinity. This is how the office came about. This was last year. It was the December of last year. It's been just a little over a year. And I was looking for an office space, but I wanted somewhere where people could instantly come in and feel comfortable enough to share, right? Because we deal with some tough stuff in here. And so I was looking around at different places, and then a friend of mine said, there's a place downtown, and I thought, downtown? Do I really want to be downtown? So I came in here, and the minute I walked in, well, of course, the listeners can't see the view here. They can't see this window.
Right.
But the way the office is set up is so that when my clients are in here, they're looking out, like they get the view, right? So immediately, what happens is their vision changes. Their vision is widened.
Wow.
The minute they walk in the room, because of the size of the window. So this building is a little over 100 years old. All right, so it's this huge, big arched window. And the building itself is a castle, right? There's a steeple on the castle. So it's in downtown historic Harrisonburg. And so I thought this would be a great place for people to heal and cast the vision.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So the colors, one of my favorite things to do is frolic in the ocean, like literally. So there's a picture of me, which also I know the listeners can't see, and that's me. You can see over there in the Dominican Republic, literally in the middle of the ocean. So that's what I've created here. The walls are the color is called Ocean Soul. Okay. So it's literally like calming waters when people come in. All right, and there's some little seashells around.
I see you in a moment.
It's a little theme here with that. So I wanted people to walk in and kind of feel that calm sense of peace. And like, all right, there's some safety here. There's some healing here. There's some restoration here. There's rejuvenation here. And so I work with the landlords with the color scheme, same as the carpet. It's like sand. And so people can just come in. And, of course, I have a whiteboard up. Because sometimes when people are going through challenges and they're feeling things, it's important to kind of write that out. Okay. So that they can actually see it and kind of hear what they're saying. Sometimes people are in this refrain. They're used to saying things about themselves. Stuff like, I can't help it. That's just the way I am. We got to write that out and break that down and really test that and find out if that's really true or if there's just something they've been conditioned to believe. And people are not used to seeing their feelings written out. Used to feeling them, not really talking about them, not giving voice to them.
And definitely not seeing them.
And definitely not seeing them.
Wow.
So that whiteboard is powerful.
That's a major tool.
It's a major tool.
Wow.
And so it's a part of the experience here.
So, it's awesome, folks. Like I said, as soon as I walked in, I was like, whoa, man, this is, again, because the first thing I did, I walked to the window.
Yeah, right.
I introduced myself. Hey, how you doing? I walked right by the desk and said, I'm going to look at this window. I don't know what you're going to do for the next 5 minutes, but I'm going to stare at downtown. I'm going to stare downtown Rockingham. But no, we just certainly appreciate you sharing that. And I also want to talk a little bit about, I know we have we have a mutual friend, Pat and Cliff Copper.
Yes.
And again, I know they were on the show a couple of weeks back and, talking about, Pat's book and their relationship. And I met them, I guess I've been here it's hard to believe, almost 14 years. And of course, I always liked Cliff's style. He was always, super GQ, and I'd always check him out and see what kind of gaiters he had on. And he said, man, where'd you get those shoes? And we kind of, talk about where we got a different attire that we had on. But I know Miss Bates and the Coppers, they were in Toastmasters.
Yes.
And if you don't mind sharing about Toastmasters, encouraging anybody that may be interested in that program as well.
Absolutely. So I am a Toastmaster, and I've been a Toastmaster a little over, or just about 2 years. And I met Pat Copper, and she was, at the time that I met her, the area director. So the way Toastmasters is set up, it's set up at the club level and then at the area level. And the area is comprised of multiple clubs that are in the local area. And she was the area director. Excellent, just top-notch lady, right? So, I can't say enough about her. And the next year, I was tapped to be the area director. Okay. And I was still pretty new, but I was pretty zealous, which is why they even asked me. So, that meant that she was the immediate past area director, and so she was right there for me every step of the way. Anytime I had a question, anytime for anything, she was just right there. And I think Toastmasters is one of the best organizations on this planet.
Wow.
The reason why is it teaches you communication and leadership skills. So when you are a more effective communicator, you are a better husband, you are a better wife, you are a better student, you are a better coworker. You're better at everything when you can easily convey what you're trying to say. The other thing it does is, at a local Toastmasters meeting, what you would expect to find, you're going to find people who have prepared speeches. So they're working through these different projects. They create the speeches. And then at the actual meeting, they're given feedback. So a lot of us create things and put them out into the world, but we don't get feedback.
Wow.
Right? We don't get the opportunity to find out what we could do to enhance our message, to make it easier for people to absorb it. And that's what the Toastmasters experience does for you. So I was the area director for the year. It's a 1-year term. And now I'm currently the president of our local Harrisonburg chapter here.
Okay.
And I've been president since June. But it's just an amazing thing to watch people come into it. Some people are afraid they've just never really spoken publicly before.
That's a fear.
Yeah, because it's like the two greatest fears are like death and
And
public
public
speaking.
speaking.
But public speaking is number one.
All right. You're like, what are you doing today?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't want to talk in public.
Right. But what this does is, it's a safe and nurturing environment. So you're going to get the feedback, but it's constructive.
Okay.
Right. So people are never going to tell you, "Oh, that's horrible. That you suck." That's never going to happen. But you are going to get real constructive feedback of what you can do better the next time. And it's just in such a great environment to do it. So and it's a nonprofit organization. It's about $65 every 6 months. So we're talking nominal fee. And meetings are held. Our meeting is done every week, but some chapters or clubs meet every other week.
Okay.
But it's just an amazing experience to help people really grow. And you watch people grow. You watch people who are just absolutely petrified to stand up and talk in front of people. And then like 2 months later, they're like, they're not using their notes and, that they're sharing their personal stories. And it's just an incredible organization.
Because I've seen Pat and Cliff and what they've gotten done, and some of the folks at our church have participated in the program and see them come out.
Yes.
And I don't want to say shell, but it's just as Miss Bates said, that it is a huge fear. When somebody's asked to speak in public, sometimes they rather go run and hide or rather take a slow boat to China. But those out there that are struggling, Coach, what are you calling out? Hey, if you're dealing with that, my challenge to you, look up Toastmaster, get involved, because again, that's just another thing that we're trying to do here on the show is just provide information and for a positive solution to anything that you may be dealing with. Also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so it was my experience in Toastmasters that was really helping me to hone and craft a message. So when I got tapped on the shoulder to speak at graduation, I had that practice of being in front of people and sharing it. So I wasn't like completely petrified. It was still nerve-wracking, but I wasn't completely petrified because of my Toastmasters experience.
Now, I want to kind of turn the attention back to the office real quick.
Yes.
So again, because in this segment of the paint, we find out who actually is behind the wheel. So as I came in, I saw that, and then instantly my eyes went up to the left behind her desk, and I saw a picture of her grandmother. And I said, "This your mom?" She said, "No, this is my grandmother." And then her mom is actually in a photo on the mantle right by the window. So instantly, Coach Goins makes a quick assessment. I'm analyzing the defense. So what kind of defense and offense should I be setting up? I could see family was a deep running. In her life and in its significance because, your office takes on your personality. So when you walk in, I saw her grandmother's photo on the wall as well as her mother on the wall. And I think she lost her grandmother last...
No, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yep. And
her mother is still living. But how proud of them. I know as the book came out and doing the thing and she's able to celebrate that with her family. So if you don't mind, just kind of share, about your grandmother, if you will, as well as your mother.
Okay, so my grandmother is still my favorite person. She's the best person I've ever met in my entire existence on this planet. The interesting story about that particular picture, Grandma died in 1998. Okay. And I was really, really grief-stricken. Like, I could not even look at her picture. I had this little Polaroid. I'm dating myself, but I had a Polaroid. Okay. And I had this little Polaroid, and I would visit the Polaroid like once a year. Every time I would look at the picture, I would just break down, right? And doing this emotional work, and directly as a result of the tapping, like working through that emotional distress, I was able to finally neutralize the stress response.
Wow. Okay.
So that I wasn't breaking into a million pieces. And finally, I felt like, all of this, like the love and the wisdom and all the stuff she had deposited inside of me that was really inaccessible to me for 15 years after she died. Because I just couldn't get through the pain.
Right.
I would just fall apart, and that's all I could see. Put the picture back and just wait till the next year. Literally, that's what was going on. But when I was able to get to the heart of that grief and really resolve that, then I could reconnect to all the wisdom and all the amazing memories and all that stuff. And that little Polaroid was not enough. I took that Polaroid out and got it blown up, and that's the poster that you see on the wall. Wow. So on my website, at thewillcoaching.com, if you go to the tab that says tapping, there's a video that I actually show you a little bit about tapping, and I show you the Polaroid and how I got to that poster.
How about that?
So then when I came to the office, I thought, well, who's going to take care of the office when I'm not here? Well, clearly it's Grandma.
Come on, Grandma. Hey, you got it. You got the hand, huh?
So Grandma is on the wall. And then my mother, my mother raised me as a single parent, and until I was 12, and she married my stepfather. But my mother, I'm telling you what she went through. When my father left our family, my mother was pregnant with me. This is in 1972.
Wow.
Okay, so think about that.
Okay.
So she's a single black woman. She's got an 18-month-old child, and she's pregnant with her second child. And my father decides, he's out. She did what she had to do. She went to barber college. She started doing hair. Then she got into a car accident in 1980. The car flipped. She's tossed out of the back windshield of the car. When the car comes back down, it lands on her hands. So some people who were seeing this happen, literally some men had to come and pick the car up off her hands.
Wow.
So her career done. She did what she had to do. She healed. She went back to work. She started working as a bartender. And then she saved up her money to go to school. Then she became a nurse's assistant. She was working 2 or 3 jobs at a time. She did everything that she needed to do to take care of me and my brother, because she was vowed and determined. We weren't going to be on a system. Mm-hmm. We weren't going to grow up in that kind of environment. And she did everything that she needed to do. So with my grandma's help and my aunts and uncles, they helped with our child care and kind of helped supplement what she was doing. But my mother is a rock star. Wow. And the cool thing about her, too, is that she is an author. So she had a dream to write a book as well. And so she published her dream, her book in 2014, and it's called Destiny, God's Plan in Motion. Of course, that book is in my office as well, because, it's
all right. Well, that what an awesome testimony, and I'm gonna we'll have to hook up with your mom and
sure.
Come in down. We may expand it and do a live show.
Okay.
With you and your mother. But what a great as she was sitting there, listen, folks, as Miss Bates was sitting there telling about the obstacles that was in the way as her mother was going through, and the first thing that jumped in my mind was I can. No matter what she was facing, she was looking at I can. From the car accident, the bartending, and do the multiple jobs that she did, because she had one goal, and that was to take care of her kids and not to be on assistance. And and just blessings flow. And then look at her kids able to understand that and seize that moment, not use it as a crutch, or and that's the thing. A lot of times we don't think there's crutches in the room, but there's crutches all along the wall. And if you look for an excuse, you can definitely find one. If you look for a crutch, just go to the wall, because a lot of times they're leaning on the wall. They may not be laying in the floor, because we may fall over them. But they're on the wall, and if you're looking for them, you can definitely find them. So as we start winding this great conversation up with none other than the CEO of At the Wheel Coaching, Miss Bates, what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss it back over to her and just ask her, just whatever, share with whatever's on your heart with our listeners, our subscribers, about, whatever, today, what is on your heart to share. And I just, I've enjoyed this, and I certainly appreciate your time and your passion and what you're doing for the citizens of the Rockingham and all across all of the states that you affect. And also, before I do that, I want you to talk about this radio show, because
Yes.
I know you're on the radio, and I don't want to, not touch on that before you start wrapping up. So let's hear about your broadcast time.
So the broadcast that had been monthly, and it mostly out of Georgia.
Okay.
And it's called the Sunday Soul Service with Dr. Renee Sunday. It's her show, and I was hosting once a month, the third Tuesday of every month. And we just take a topic. Some of that is on my At the Will coaching channel.
Okay.
And we just take a topic, and so some of the topics that I covered was anger. Dealing with anger, because that's it's a big one. Definitely something I've had to navigate in my life experience. But also I talk a lot about self-care, self-compassion. I think that's very important. I think it's important for men and for women. I think we want our kids, our nieces and our nephews to be great, but if we're not doing a great job modeling them taking care of, if we're not taking care of ourselves and they're watching us not do that, we can't just assume that they're going to take care of themselves.
Wow.
So if we can get emotionally fit, and we can put as much emphasis on that as physical fitness and financial fitness, and become emotionally fit, then we can be better models to those that we want to follow us, those who are watching us.
Wow.
So that's very near and dear to my heart. Talk about confidence. That's a huge thing. When people don't have confidence, it's difficult to really move forward. And one of the things that I love to talk about is limiting beliefs. Goes back to that whiteboard in my office. Mm-hmm. This is who you really believe that you are. I'm going to challenge you. Right. So I think it's very important for people to take a look at that.
So again, certainly appreciate it. Can you what station, is there a link? Can we?
Yeah, usually what I was doing, my last show, I just did the last show of the year, and that was this past Tuesday. Okay. So if you look up At the Will Coaching on Facebook, you can see the last show, the replays are there. Okay. And then the shows that I've done will be on the At the Will Coaching YouTube channel.
You know what? So folks, there it is. So don't sit around and, I didn't know. Don't come up with no excuse. Miss Bates is laying it out. She's already gone out in front and got this stuff laid out. So now the ball is in our court. We have to take the ownership. Don't dribble it off your knee. Don't turn it over. Take advantage of, again, another great individual we've had on the show, and just tap into the resources that are made available to you. So as we continue to strengthen you and enlighten you, just make sure that you leave those crutches where they are and be the person that you are destined to be. So as we start wrapping this thing up, we definitely want to thank Ms. Bates for her time, her talent, and everything that she continues to do. So we're going to toss it back over to her just to end this. I know she's going to end us on the high, and I'm looking forward to as she starts wrapping this thing up. But again, we want to thank you so much. There's not a lot of people that would kind of take a step back, walk away from such a great career to step out and do. And I just love this At the Will coaching. Driving your life for higher ground. Release your stress and achieve success. And again, that is atthewillcoaching.com. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ms. Bates for her closing comments.
Well, this is what I will say, and I've alluded to it this hour. I've really enjoyed the time. I cannot stress the importance of emotional fitness. Mm-hmm. That has got to be prioritized. The absence of emotional fitness is what kept my father away. If he had been able to deal with his emotional issues and show up and be who I needed him to be, it would have saved me maybe a few decades of challenges. So I think erecting emotional fitness as a priority is where I would encourage people to start. Wow. And really start to deal with that stuff that's still hurting you. And I don't care if it's 30 years ago. It doesn't matter. No. Wherever it is, you want to start somewhere.
You know what? That's so powerful. So again, folks, author, CEO, and again, the book is entitled, I'm going to make sure I get this thing exactly right here, the 12 Keys to Achieve Personal Success in the Smartest Way. All right. So #1 sell on Amazon. So you know what? You heard it right in. And don't forget where you heard it. Don't forget that you heard it on Basketball More in the Game. And I'm your host, Coach Goins. So listen, as we start wrapping this up, and we just want to wish everybody, such a happy holiday season, Merry Christmas, and however you celebrate Christ's birth. We just want to just thank you for your time and your talent, and just taking a little bit of time out and listening to old Coach Goins, as again I'm in Harrisonburg, Virginia, with none other than author and CEO Miss Bates, and again in a great, beautiful office here. And just, always remember, as we always say in our closing comments, I am the way, the truth, and the life, which is John 14:6. I'm your host, Coach Goins. Until next time, as we always say, we'll see you in the gym. And